Have you ever felt like you don't have enough? Not enough time, not enough money, or not enough talent to make a difference? It's easy to believe that what we hold in our hands is too little to matter. But in God's hands, a little can become a lot. Today's story is about a boy's small lunch that ended up feeding thousands. It's a beautiful reminder that God can multiply even our modest offerings to bless many. This event takes place on a hillside by the Sea of Galilee. Jesus had been teaching a huge crowd of people all day. They numbered about 5,000 men. And if you include women and children, the crowd could have been well over 10,000. As evening approached, the disciples grew concerned. They told Jesus, "This is a remote place and it's already late. Send the people away so they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food." But Jesus had a different plan. He said to the disciples, "They don't need to go away. You give them something to eat." The disciples were baffled. How could they possibly feed such a massive crowd? They checked their supplies and told Jesus, "We have only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish." It must have seemed hopelessly insufficient. That's barely a meal for a family, let alone thousands of hungry people.
Jesus smiled and said, "Bring them here to me." He directed the crowd to sit down on the grass. Then Jesus took those 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, lifted his eyes to heaven, and gave thanks. He broke the loaves and gave them to the disciples, and the disciples began to distribute pieces of bread and fish to the people. Then a miracle happened in their very hands. The bread and fish kept going and going. Every time they handed out a piece, there was more to give. The food somehow multiplied so that everyone ate until they were full. This huge crowd that came hungry ended up having an unexpected feast. Afterward, Jesus told the disciples to gather the leftovers so nothing would be wasted. They filled 12 whole baskets with the pieces that remained. Far more food at the end than they had at the start. It's mentioned in one gospel account, John 6, that the 5 loaves and 2 fish actually came from a boy in the crowd who offered his lunch. That anonymous boy's willingness to give what little he had became the starting point for this great miracle. Jesus took a humble offering and multiplied it supernaturally. The people were astonished and began to say, "Surely this is the prophet who is to come into the world." They realized they had witnessed something divine.
The feeding of the 5,000 is rich in lessons for us. First, it teaches us that no gift is too small to God. The disciples looked at 5 loaves and 2 fish and saw lack. Jesus saw potential. We might feel like what we have to offer, our skills, our time, our resources, is insignificant. But if we offer it to God, He can multiply it in ways we can't imagine. The boy gave up his lunch, probably not knowing what would happen, and Jesus turned it into a banquet for thousands. In our lives, maybe we have just an hour a week to volunteer, or a small amount of money to donate, or one kind word to share. In God's hands, these can ripple out and bless far more people than we expect. Second, this story reminds us of God's provision. Jesus cared that the crowd was hungry and took action to feed them. It shows that God is concerned about our practical needs, not just our spiritual needs. When we trust Him, we can have faith that He will provide for us, often in unexpected ways. Many people have stories of times when they thought they didn't have enough money to pay a bill, strength to get through a day, etc., and then help came seemingly out of nowhere. It's like God's modern multiplication miracles, maybe not as dramatic as bread and fish from thin air, but just as loving. We also see the importance of gratitude and prayer. Jesus gave thanks for the little food they had before the miracle happened. That's a powerful example. Thanking God, even when we feel it's not enough. A heart of gratitude can precede some of God's greatest work in our lives. In our daily practice, expressing thanks for what we have, however little, opens us to trust God for more. From a practical standpoint, one could also reflect on the value of sharing. Imagine if the boy or the disciples had said, "This is mine, we barely have any, we can't share." The miracle began with an act of generosity. Sometimes, our willingness to share what we have creates a chain reaction. One small charitable act can inspire others, effectively multiplying goodness. There's a kind of miracle that happens when a community comes together, like food drives that start with one donation and end up feeding whole neighborhoods, or fundraising campaigns where many small gifts combine to meet a big need. There's even a scientific concept analogous to this: positive feedback loops, where one action triggers effects that lead to more of that action. Generosity often works this way. Kindness begets more kindness. When Jesus multiplied the bread, he was also multiplying faith and generosity among the people. Think about a time you felt inadequate or lacking. This story encourages you to bring your 5 loaves and 2 fish to God anyway. You might be surprised what he can do with it. It could be a talent you're hesitant to use or a small dream you have. Offer it to him and watch how he can expand its impact. Lastly, notice the leftover pieces, 12 baskets. That shows God's abundance. When he provides, it's not just barely enough, but often overflowing. It reminds us that God's love and power are not limited. We shouldn't be afraid that if we give or serve, we'll run out or be left empty. God can fill us up even more. Just like the leftover baskets, we might end up with more joy and fulfillment than we started with after we partner with God in serving others. Dear God, thank you for providing for my needs. Help me to trust you with the little I have. I offer you my time, talents, and resources. Please use them for your glory and to help others. Teach me to be generous and to have faith that you will multiply my offering in ways I may not see. Amen. Have you ever seen a loaves and fishes moment in your life, a time when a little became a lot? Share your story or any thoughts about this miracle in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. If you learned something from this video, please hit the like button, share it, and subscribe to our channel. Remember, God can use you and what you have to do amazing things.